my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike, and before I have to run off an adult too much harder, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if after all this awesomeness, you still have the wherewithal, it'd be really cool if you share this with someone who you think would like it, or, just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That'd be pretty dope. And if you want to tell me what parts of the show you were passionate about, peeved you, or just say hi, you can always reach me on Twitter at @likeikes and passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. So, adulting, let's talk about it. No, but seriously, I'm having a great time. I'm actually I'm recording this on the 7th of January. And I am literally just spending basically the whole entire day cleaning my room, getting shit done that at different points, earlier points in my life, would have been a literal chore that somebody else had inflicted upon me, or that I would haphazardly do at the last minute. But I kind of woke up today excited to just clean my room, clean the sheets, put away cards, do all the adulty stuff. Maybe it's because it then therefore makes me feel like an adult. I don't know. But I'm just so much fun. I'm gonna clean and optimize my storage on my PC later, like where files are, how they're named. If I have time, I'm like actively looking forward to that. Things that I'm not looking forward to is going back to work tomorrow. It has been a glorious 2+ weeks of just liberation, wake up whenever I want, go to sleep basically whenever I want. It has been so much fun. Back to the grindstone though for, another 5 months, and then I get 2 months off. So, but yeah, do that, I suppose. Also, things that were kind of dismaying that happened recently. Yesterday I got fleeced in the Mana Traders Invitational that I was so happy that I qualified for. I went a rip-roaring 3 wins and 6 losses. Not ideal. Slightly better than my Worlds performance of, what was it, 1 win and 4 losses or whatever. But yeah, wasn't ideal. Took it better than I would have in the past, so growth, but definitely could still use to take it better. Got a bit angry at certain people being Muppets and not getting punished for it. And I'm, with how much therapy I'm going through, I can recognize that that's not healthy, but it's still hard to change that in the moment. Speaking of therapy, though, really getting in a much better headspace as time progresses on, not only in regards to life. I love how he's saying this backwards, like magic's more important in life. That's not true. But it's helping my magic game, it's helping my life game, it's helping all the games. I am feeling so much better, like so much more well-adjusted. I'm understanding things better. I'm able to congratulate myself on improving. I'm able to understand, people doing stuff doesn't affect me unless I want to. So, if some guy's being a dipshit, that doesn't need to matter to me. I don't need to get all my, feathers out of place. Although still, going through in 6 losses fucking sucked ass. But it happens. Everybody's gotta, it's pretty hard to go through life without bad experiences. So, I put in a okay amount of work. I could have put in more. Not sure how much difference that would have made. This is a very unique format, so a lot of it was kind of random. But overall, I think I'm predominantly happy with my choices and my performance. Just a lot of it is just what it is. Yeah, that's what's been going on with me as of recently. Um, had some really awesome conversations with my therapist and with my parents. Kind of started to understand and figure myself out better. Which is just highly recommend therapy and all of its workings. It really is just the best. I know I say that week in, week out, but I mean it. Something else that is awesome is the guest this week. Today, you're going to be hearing about Kevin Van. I met Kevin on Monday Night Magic, and we played a couple times. Seemed like a cool dude. And then I got to know about what y'all are going to get to know about. and I hope you found it as eye-opening and awesome as I did. So without further ado, take it away past me with the interview of Kevin Van. All right, folks, today on the pod, we have someone who was a mathlete champion at the age of 12. He's never broken a bone in his body and left Vegas up $800 in his first trip. It's the indomitable Kevin Van.
Oh, that's true. Very, very true.
All right, so no more, mincing words or mucking about. My friend, what is the passion that you have brought with you today?
I make suits. I mean, I make clothing, but suits is uh,
Why the
suits is what I'm passionate
stipulation
about.
between suits and clothing?
I mean, I'm the kind of guy that likes to underwhelm, right? I don't. I, I'm.
You
I'm.
don't want to
I'm
come
not.
out the gates too strong.
Yeah, exactly. Because I learned this the hard way. People start looking at you and asking you questions that are really mundane, and they start like aggrandizing you, putting you on a pedestal. They think you're like
Mm-hmm.
really special. And I hate that. I hate
Yeah. Then you
attention.
have this. Yeah, you have to live up to this expectation. I feel that.
Exactly. Exactly. I like to be the underdog.
I like to make the suits that people root for.
Exactly.
Uh, when did you get started with this?
Um, I've always been obsessed with it because it's an exotic thing. So, like, I mean, if you can picture in high school, I grew up in Orange County, which is like, Surfside, beach city.
Mm.
Everyone's wearing like board shorts to school. Um, and like me and my like, uh, teenage emo cohorts, we were the ones wearing like Chelsea boots and pea coats and had like mod
Hell
haircuts.
yeah.
Yeah, we were playing dress up, and so like wearing the clothing in that sense, like wearing a suit was like an act of defiance, right?
That's
Especially like,
so awesome.
yeah.
You're dressing like your parents to go against the culture.
Well, like my parents are like dressing like teenage kids, they're wearing like billabong and stuff, and they're just looking at me like,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so cool. This is like so I had this prediction the other day with the way music is moving that I'm wondering if in a decade or two kids are going to go back and start listening to classical music as a way to rebel against the way music has pushed forward. If that's going to come back in like every eighth generation it like reverts to the 1800s or 1700s or whatever.
I mean, look, if you spend enough time with classical music, you can understand how much angst and like I like
I mean,
that stuff,
Beethoven
like.
literally wrote a song about a girl to impress her. There is nothing more angsty than writing a a thing for a whole entire symphony to play to get your girl's attention. Be like, hey, sweetie, check out what I did. Just
Yeah,
an
people just have a
hour
lot.
of bang.
People had a lot more time back then, I guess.
True. A lot less distractions. So back in high school, you're wearing suits. Did you guys get like picked on, or was it like, all right, you guys are weird? Did people think you were cool? How did that vibe check out in high school for you?
Well, luckily, I grew up in a pretty like mellow, modern town. Well, now like Huntington Beach is nothing like it used to be. It's very weird, and I feel really weird there now. But back then, well, okay, my wife's from Kansas, right? My wife's from the middle of America, and she
Yeah.
grew up in the total like football star,
Yeah.
cheerleader, popular kid kind of archetype of high school, right? There was like essentially a movie. Every trope is there. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
My high school was a lot more progressive. We had a lot of people who were part of this program called the SAC program, which is like a special ability. So we had a lot of students with Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities. And so right off the bat, the makeup of the student body was completely different. And also, as a result of that, like the weight of like the popular jock people didn't like, it wasn't the same balance. It wasn't the same ratio. So even though we were weirdos, um,
Mhm.
people like that about us. Actually, like my closest friend who I was in a band with, who was like another like mod rocker, like 16-year
Yeah.
old angst kid. He won Homecoming King, uh, and like you can imagine just like the nerdiest nerd guy who's like making his own like bootleg Weezer merch and like
Yeah,
sewing his jeans tight and that kind of thing. He won prom king. So yeah, my high school was pretty like accepting of weirdos being weird, which was great.
that's awesome. So you're coming up, you're in high school, you're wearing the suits. When did you first have interest in, doing more than just putting them on?
I fell into it by accident, and I'll avoid the tangent of my like career in the restaurant industry. When I came out of that career, basically, I just like was really burnt out of working in restaurants for 8 years,
But
and
sorry.
yeah. And then I basically it's like the equivalent of like throwing a dart at a dartboard and hitting a career path. I just like went for a bunch of internships and just decided to work for free for a lot of different industries and
What
companies.
were the
Just
ones that you tried out?
so PR marketing was very easy because I mean like a lot of these industries just kind of absorb like sponges these interns, so it's very easy to just walk in the door and be like, hey, I'll take out your trash for free if you let me like put your company on my resume. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. So, PR company, music company, being in LA. This is Hollywood land, so a lot of like commercial sets where I can get like access to just like
Yeah.
interesting things. Right, I just wanted to see what people do
Yeah.
because after 8 years in the restaurant, it was like being in a cave. Right, like there's like no sunlight. You're kind of like opening like the door to the light of day. You're just like, well, what's out there? And then like one of them just happened to be a clothing company, but it was a very specific clothing company that like I really, really was obsessed with, but not knowing anything about fashion or clothing or even like dressing oneself properly, right? There was just
Yeah.
something really, really special about this clothing brand, and it's called Band of Outsiders. It no longer exists. It went out of business in like
Oh.
2014. But I knew about their product, and I would like go to these stores on my day off in like on Melrose and like the ritzy areas of town, right?
Hmm.
And I would like walk into these stores very, very nervously, very sheepishly, and I would look at the clothes in the rack, and I would never buy anything. I would just touch them. I would just like pick them up and like just like as artifacts, right? You're just like turning things inside out. Like people spend money on this. Like, people spend ungodly sums of money on these clothes. Like what makes it special? And so I was very obsessed with that because I had, a lot of time on my hands because I didn't have a job really. And then, Band of Outsiders was this brand, and Scott Sternberg was the founder of this brand called Band of Outsiders, and he got his start by making a very specific type of suit. He was from Ohio. He had this very Americana upbringing, and he made suits, but also in the same rebellious way that I used to wear suits in high school. Right? It was like he dressed in a suit because it was a fuck you. you know it was like it was yeah, it was counterculture, like, which
Yeah.
is funny and ironic and like weird, but I love exactly that about the brand. So I ended up interning for them, and like as an intern, you're not like anywhere near the clothing itself at all, or like the design process, or like any of the glamorous stuff. You're literally like taking out trash, doing Starbucks runs, like you're organizing like hangers on a rack, making sure they're all facing the same direction. It's like it's an office, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's it's indistinguishable from any other job. But it was really cool working there because eventually, after interning there, they ended up liking me and after giving me a job, and they had some data entry that they needed to do, so I signed up. They paid me minimum wage. It was just like I was just so excited the first day I got my like email address that was Kevin at bandofoutsiders.com. I was so pumped. I had made it, making like whatever it was, like $12 an hour at the age of like 29.
So what else? What was the runner up? If you had not gotten to work for Band of Outsiders or work in this industry, what do you think you would have ended up kind of latching onto or going into at that time after coming out? You're burnt out from working in the food industry. You're looking for a new career. What was the runner up?
it literally could have been anything. Like like so much of my life is dictated by dumb luck, right? And just being in not like the right place at the right time, but being in a specific place at the right time, right? And like that be like just like getting that internship as random as it was, like going and working there and then getting a job, then like spun off the next like 10 years of my life, right? And it it takes me all the way to where I am right now, which is like kind of just like when I think back about it, I'm just like it's just so stupidly random. Um, but like I have an obsessive personality, so like I just like whenever I want to learn something, like it's not the same thing as confidence. I'm not overly confident, I'm not
Yeah.
boastful, but I'm also not intimidated by like the idea that I don't know something today, but I could know it tomorrow. And the only difference
Mm.
between today and tomorrow is I just got to learn it or I got to try it or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so I could have been like a blacksmith. I could have like made jewelry. I could have like been like gone to medical school. Like any of these things just seems like they're all equivalent to me, right? Like nothing seems more prestigious than the other. And to me it just seems like whatever would have caught my fancy like that particular moment in time is where that would have steered me, and then like I would have gone from there.
So we're doing this at 29. We're finally, we've got we we have the right email address that we get to send out and stun on people. When did you first, I know there's a better term than this, but make your own suit or like have a hand in a suit's creation?
So it wasn't until many years after all that stuff happened. So suits are like that's the like the big deal. Like making a suit is insane. It's like totally wild. Like if you did what I did, like I sat in my living room and I bought all these like old suits from Goodwill, and I would just like unpick the linings and like turn them inside out just to see what was on the inside. And I had no context for any of it. I had no idea what any of it was. I just loved seeing on the insides. But then like before you get to suits, I worked with denim. I did a lot of like t-shirts and hoodies and that kind of stuff. I learned how to make clothes in general, right? And that's more speaking to like working with factories and manufacturers in Los Angeles and abroad
Mm.
than it is about like getting on a sewing machine and like making something. Like my wife also works in the industry. She makes wedding gowns where like we just love like the most complicated ways of doing anything, right? And so she's the one that like gets on a sewing machine, makes like Halloween costumes from scratch, that kind of stuff. Me, I love like understanding the mechanics of how things work. I love um, being able to like create things in my head because of my understanding of how things work. But I don't want to actually do it. I want to see somebody else who does do it. So you go through like a couple of years of working with like brands that make jeans and stuff like that, and then it wasn't until a couple of years ago that um, I was asked to make a suit for a music video, and that was the first time I made a suit, and it was terrible. It was a horrible suit. Um, I had some know-how because again, like I spent a lot of time just trying to understand it, like by like looking on the insides of suits and like just picking it apart. Right, I had a
Yeah.
fundamental understanding of it, but I'd never tried it. I was really, really out of my league. But somebody asked me to make it, and I said yes, and I was beholden to it. And if you want to see it, so it was for a Tyler the Creator music video. Um, and a couple years ago, Tyler the Creator released an album called Igor, and um, the whole shtick of that album was like these colorful suits. And so
Yeah.
if you look at the album, you look up um, any of that stuff on Google, you'll see the suits I made, and it's funny because like the images are all very well edited, so like you don't see the flaws, but I look at them and I'm just like that's so it's so wild that like somebody like asked me to do that and that they like believe that I could do that, but then I actually did it and it exists. Like it's wild. So yeah, I mean like I that was the first suit I ever made proper. Um, and I did it by leaning on some soy manufacturers I know in Los Angeles. A lot of like just hitting the pavement, asking a lot of questions, figuring it out, that
So
kind of
not to
thing.
diminish, but if I'm understanding it correctly, you are the architect of the suit, not the contractor. Is that
That's
am I
exactly right.
okay?
That's exactly right. That's exact language I would use.
Is that I would think that that would mean you would need to get more made than one, or is this something where you hand off the idea it's so intricate that they're doing it in such small scale anyway that it's fine to get only one suit made?
No, typically you're right. You'd want to make, like, you wouldn't want, like, the first one be a prototype, right? You would never want to
Mm-hmm.
show that as the final product. But this being, Hollywood land, that's how this industry works. Is everything just runs off of like fumes, and so they were totally fine with all of the mistakes and errors and weirdness of the suit that I gave them. But you're right, and the, but also, okay, yes, I'm the architect, but the architect who's building a house, who's drawing up the plans and delegating to the contractor, has to also know how all that stuff works, right?
Yeah.
They're like putting together an idea in their head, but they have to know like building ordinances and codes and how structural support works. So that's the part where like I spent years and years and years just like teaching myself, and like half of it was like YouTube videos. Not gonna lie, they're just
Hell
like
yeah.
whatever information I could learn about it, I would absorb it. And shockingly, there's actually very little information on how to do like traditional tailoring. Like I had a I had to wean from so many different sources on how to
Just
make
like
this
your
stuff.
suits, it was a piecemeal education.
It was a piecemeal education. Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
rewind a little bit, you went from you were working in the food industry for like close to a decade. You get out, and then you're trying all these internships, and it from the sounds of things weren't paying you that much.
Oh no.
Was this something where you kind of had to like take out a loan, ask friends, family, maybe even parents for money, move back in with your folks? How did that financially sort itself out, if I may be so bold to ask?
No, no, yeah. I mean, it's totally valid. I mean, like even in the food industry, I made nothing. I mean, at the end of my near decade long career in working in the food industry, I was making $13.50 an hour. As
Oh
a sous
boy.
as a sous chef,
Oh.
um, of a Michelin starred restaurant. I mean, it's upside down. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. Okay. Um, I mean, luckily, being a single guy living in a studio apartment in Los Angeles with like, grandfathered in rent or just rent that was pretty stable, right? So I was paying like
Hmm.
$800 a month for a studio. I got by.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something though, not to keep drilling the same well, is this something that when you told your parents about, going, I didn't even know a Michelin star restaurant, that's fucking amazing. You're a sous chef. It's, you have this kind of title that holds a lot of weight in like family conversations and when like bragging and like, the way some families feel about their children to then go to interning. How did your parents and like family or friends take that?
Oh, they were so pissed. They were so pissed. Okay, so it's funny. It took them a very long time to even like be proud of the fact that I worked in restaurants because okay, I'll very quickly say this. Like so I'm Vietnamese and I'm very fascinated with like the way languages translate from one to the other, right? And
Yep.
so from Vietnamese to English, like in English, if you work in a restaurant or if you're the head of a kitchen, they call you a chef, and we immediately have this like prestigious like white jacket, very tall hat picture in our
Yep.
head of somebody who is like it's like military, right? It's like
Yeah.
military respect, right? But in Vietnamese, when you say you work in a kitchen,
Oh no.
the translation is super derogatory. So it implies like you're the help, right? And that's like the
Oh.
and that's the only way to say I work in a restaurant. Yeah, like that, the literal translation is I do kitchen work. Like that's how you say I'm a chef. And so my parents, when I didn't go to college, right, I spent literally all of one day in college and I walked right out. They were like really upset at the fact that I wasn't pursuing whatever, like a dentistry career or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And it took them so long, like the culture meeting like the zeitgeist of food culture and Food Network, all that stuff, all happened at the same time. And then they're like, oh, actually, my kid's a chef. He works at a good restaurant. Like, and they would like, yeah, tell their like friends about it. And then like, and then like at the next like Christmas meeting, they're just like, oh, are you still working at restaurants? I'm like, no, I quit. I have no idea what I'm doing for my life. Yeah, but that's like, that's
How
I
do they feel about you making suits now?
Same thing where it took them a very long time to even wrap their head around what that meant. But when I tell them like some of the names that like their friends would know of people that I made suits for, then they're like super proud because they can like talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So that it's not. It always comes along, but it takes them a while, but they try.
So maybe in conversations like that or other ones out there, if you were to try and explain to people why you love this passion of yours in just one sentence, how would you try to say it? So they kind of could figure out how you feel about it.
We're talking about suit making, right?
Yes.
Um, it's if I was explaining to somebody why I love this, it's just like the highest form of clothing for men. And suits also exist for women. It's also a very high form of clothing for women as well. It is like just the most arcane, most time-consuming, most complex garment that a man can wear, and I love that. Like I would like if there was something more complicated than this. Like I actually like no, there is actually, and I'm starting to kind of get into it, but like performance, like NASA outfits, like
Mm-hmm.
that's even more complicated, and now I'm starting to get into that too. But anyways, I'm just obsessed with things for like the beauty of what they are, and like suits have just this huge, long, storied, um, history. There's so much to it. It's so easy to just completely underestimate what goes into making a suit, especially because now they're mass produced by like very big box stores, and I have a very strong opinion of that too. But um, when you like drill it down to like why suits exist, right? Like why is there like this little thing on your collar that folds down? Like why do you have little buttons on your cuff? Why does it do this? Why does like every single component of the suit is oriented towards like fixing your appearance, making you look better, and by extension of that, naturally just giving you more confidence. And I see this whenever I put somebody in the suit. Um, and
So while
yeah.
you're bringing it up, since I don't know, why is there that aspect of the collar?
So, okay, picture your standard, 9 to 5 suit, right? You're
Okay.
going to have this little fold down thing across your chest with a little cutout notch in it. You're going to have some shoulder pads. You're going to have a couple buttons at the front of your belly. Um, and then it's going to sort of like curve and cascade away. So that the little fold collar part on your chest is called the lapel. I mean, most people know that as the lapel.
Yep.
That's a common knowledge now. So the shape that makes, and it goes in and out of fashion, between narrow lapels and wide lapels. But all of that's supposed to give you this like broader, more prominent chest, right? So if you have like a hunched stature, or if you like have a hollow chest, or if you have like if your proportion of your like girth and your waist is not as flattering as it should be, like
Mm-hmm.
that shape, that diagonal shape gives you the appearance of like a more balanced, like prominent, like
Oh,
masculine chest, right? It's just visual tricks, right? Like
yeah.
so when you
It's
see
like
like a
pinstripes helping people like look like leaner, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. And like that's why you also would never see stripes go in the opposite, like horizontally, because it makes you look weird. But vertical stripes make you look more svelte. Okay, vertical stripes are actually a very good visual tool too. I mean, picture like old school like Vogue or like Sears catalog, like illustrated sketches of like men and women back in the 50s, right? Some of the tropes are these like super long legs and like super long curves and like very like boxy statuesque shoulders, right?
Yeah.
So all of like the interior structure, all the shoulder pads, it's all meant to give you much straighter, cleaner lines, right? And we're like our bodies are weird and bumpy and like and fleshy, right? Like we don't have a
Yeah.
lot of straight lines on our like we have no straight lines in our body, right? And so when a suit is doing what it's supposed to do, it's giving you this appearance of super clean, svelte, slimming lines. And like, pinstripes also do that. So it can make you look taller if you're too short. It can make you look shorter if you're too tall. It can balance out the proportion of your waist to your legs if you have that going on. If you're slumping to one side, a well-made suit can sort of visually correct that. And it like in it like if you compare like a bespoke suit fitting on a person of any age, shape, or whatever to a mass produced one, like there's so much subtlety and nuance that the bespoke one gives to the wearer that is just, again, like it's so easy to overlook these things because they're meant to be invisible details. They're meant to like
Yeah.
disappear, right? And then yeah, like that's the purpose of it. Like that's why a suit exists, is to like make you feel and look more statuesque.
Fuck yeah. So, kind of to rewind a second, you mentioned, astronaut attire, if you will.
Hmm.
What would you say, looking forward, is your dream involvement with this passion? What would you hope it looks like, amounts to? Is this something that, is there like somebody that you want to work with in this space? Is there another, you know, clothing architect who you would like to collab with, or maybe like, be like kind of almost tutored by?
Uh, I am like to a fault, like an autodidact. Like I'm not really good at taking like instruction from other people, which is why like
Yeah,
college never worked out, right? So I'm always about learning and teaching myself things. Um, I'm beyond like the idea of like working for another company, for example, that like makes suits.
sure.
I'm strictly in the experimentation phase, right? So I'm super comfortable making suits, and I think the suits that I make are really, really awesome. And
Fuck yeah.
so the only thing that I'm looking at now is I'm struggling. Okay, like I gotta have a reason why suits are still important, right? Like outside of the things I just described about what a suit does, all that stuff, like the culture has moved beyond it, right? People just don't wear them anymore, and that's fine. I people are super into comfort and all these things, and you know, flashing money isn't about wearing a suit. Flashing money is more typically about wearing a super fancy jumpsuit or whatever it is. So it there I I'm very quietly trying to come up with a reason why, like a raison d'etre, right? Like what, like why am I making this, and why does it deserve to exist? I'm doing it case by case, and the only suits I've made have been for individuals, um, and I've made suits for people who wear tons of suits and have tons of suits, and spend a lot of money on clothes. And I've made suits for people who have never owned a suit and are going to a wedding for the first time, and they don't know why they need a suit,
Yeah.
but it's just one, like, sort of this thing. But I think the most rewarding suits that I've made, okay, there's two. The most rewarding suits that I've made are for the people who fall outside the center of the belt chart when it comes to how clothes fit, right? So I'm talking about guys who are big. I'm talking about guys who are small. I'm talking about people who are just not your average,
Yeah.
6'2" type body types. Like those people have so much clothes they can just like go to the store and throw something on from the rack, and they look good because like that the clothes are made for them, all that stuff. They're fine. They're gonna have tons of clothes. But the guys who are, let's
Yeah.
say, like
You want to make a suit for Master Blaster.
yeah, I don't know what Master Blaster is, but
It's the it's, if memory serves, from Mad Max Thunderdome. There is this tiny little man and his very large companion. So think Bran
yeah,
and Hodor
yeah,
from Game of
yeah,
Thrones. Like you want to make suits
yeah,
for those two.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, exactly. I mean, one of my clients, this guy named Mike, he's 6'2", really has, he has short arms, he has a big waist, he has a really like, awkward stance. Like he just hates wearing clothes, he hates shopping for clothes because it's just like so intimidating. Like nothing ever fits right, right? Like everything has to be fussy. He has to go, take it. If he finds something that remotely works, kind of like he has to still take it to a tailor and then like get it all hemmed and stuff like that. It's all
Yeah.
weird. So like clothes shopping for him sucks. And so we started this process because yeah, he needed a suit to wear to a wedding, right? And I remember from the first time we spoke and interacted, he was just like he brought some of his clothes in that he like, because I asked him, I was like, bring some of the stuff that you already own that you like, and we'll sort of start from there. And he just didn't like talking about clothes, just didn't like wearing clothes. He was just always like, it's intimidating, like there's just so many
Yeah.
problems, right? And then like we made the first round sample and we did, I did my process. And by the end of the process, by the time he got a suit, I remember it's so distinct, this memory, right? So we finally deliver the suit that's custom made for him, right? Everything, every single thing is for his body, and it's makes no excuses. He can be himself. And so put it on him, and I, have him just sort of like relax, sort of like start wearing it and sit down and move around a bit and feel casual. And by the end of like this like meeting that we had, he was just like, it was like he was wearing a sweatsuit. He was just so relaxed. You can see in his posture. He was like sitting down, crossing his legs, completely like forgetting the fact
Yeah.
that he was wearing clothing at all. But that, and like that's like the best compliment. It's just like he just felt super comfortable. That's like the whole point of that, right? This guy's never had a
You
piece of
want to have
clothing.
that Trojan man experience.
Yeah, and then like and then like I made a suit for a guy who was six, no, sorry, he was 5'5", same thing. He's never found a piece of clothing that would fit him properly, and like
Yeah.
hates buying clothes for that exact reason. And I made something custom for him, and you just see the transformation of just like their own internal confidence. It's an amazing thing.
Fuck yeah. So, inside many occupations and passions that come through this podcast, there are these specific terms that, kind of fit only that area. Whether it be a made up term or a term that has been lost to the sands of time, except for this pocket of society. Is there any, inside baseball kind of terminology or slang that is used in your line of work that you find particularly fun?
I mean, my business is called Schmatabiz, which is like so. I think that like that's what appears on my bank, statement is like the schmata, because you got to name your business something, right? And so Schmatabiz is okay. I'm probably getting this wrong because I've never actually researched it, but from my understanding, Shmata is this like old Hebrew term for like rags. And when you say Schmatabiz, like the term infers like the rag trade, right?
Yeah.
And I love
He's a rag man.
so I love me and my wife both hate the sort of like glitzy designer fashiony world end of the industry. We like the behind the scenes, like the machinery, the people, the
Yeah.
craft, all that stuff, right? So we like to be on the schmata biz side of it, and like that's just like I don't know.
It's
That's
schmata to be on the schmata biz side.
yeah.
All right. So my Bostonian's not very good. Okay. So what's a day or a week in the life of a clothing architect look like in your experience? Is there any
uh,
kind of consistency to it? Anything that's, tried and true? Or is it
so
always a different week every week?
um, it's still it's pretty consistent. So I have my factories that I work with in Los Angeles. I have my factories that I work with in Asia, right? Um, and we're always making stuff for clients. And aside from like super high end suits, I'm also making um, a lot of merch and a lot of t-shirts and all that stuff. Like that's the stuff that like pays the bills, right? Like making suits one off, it doesn't like there's
Yeah.
that's not gonna send my kids to college, so to speak. Um, so all of my daily habits are oriented around literally just being able to pick up the phone when somebody calls me and tells me that something's wrong or something has exploded or something's missing. It's just Murphy's Law, right? Like
Yeah.
I have to like sit in silence and not be occupied or have much of a schedule because I'm just waiting for whatever emergency or fire put out happens first. And that's typically like, I get a phone call at like 9 a.m. while I'm still asleep. And like they know I'm still asleep. They can hear it in my voice and they're just explaining, yada yada, can't find this. And then, I'm half asleep and I go, it's in this other room. You left it there. I saw it there yesterday, and then hang up the phone and go back to sleep. And that's the factory, and that's like the manufacturing side of it. And the other side of it is the client facing side of it, which is much more showy and much more sing songy. I put on a very I'm very very personable when I'm client facing, and so I have to like take I will take orders and commissions from people, and work through the process of them designing what they want, and getting to the point of me manufacturing it, and then eventually giving it back to them, whatever it is. And so it's a ton of interaction with people, and it requires a ton of people skills, and you are interacting with so many different types of personalities all day long, and you have to be a chameleon.
Yeah, it
um,
kind of sounds like the creative equivalent of being a firefighter. You're just constantly like waiting for this call of like, oh shit, this bad thing happened, or oh shit, my my
quite,
suit stuck in a tree.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
crap, they miss, the buttons have been, gotta go find those. Like you're just, it seems like you're almost like a catcher just waiting to, but instead of facing the pitcher, you're facing the crowd and just waiting to see what they throw at you so you can hopefully catch it.
And nowadays, that's exactly what it is. And I don't know. I like being that person. It feels good. You
Hell
just like
yeah.
it's like it's like the beatific wise grandfather figure who just has a one liner answer for every problem. It's like, go ask Kevin. Kevin says to add an inch and then call it a day, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not now at the end of my like, not that I'm at the end of anything, but like after all of the crazy like career switchbacks I've gone through, like I'm at this place now where I'm just sort of sitting back and yeah, like just pick up the phone, answer, tell them how to fix something, and then keep going, and then yeah.
that's awesome. So in movies and TV, they often show clothing creation as sometimes a job, sometimes somebody like, someone's grandma is just doing it, and just showing off her expertise. In the movies and TV shows you've seen over the years showcasing either professions that are nearly identical to yours or ones that are adjacent, how have they shown it correctly and how have they shown it incorrectly in your estimation?
Oh, they're almost all incorrect. I mean, but that's like that's like movie land, right? Like, I mean,
How,
like
what did they get? What did they get the most wrong?
well, I mean, because I have a dual citizenship as a clothing architect and as a chef, I think the ones that really like, yeah, I have to bite my tongue at are the restaurant chefy ones. I think like every single movie that has come out about the restaurant industry or being a chef is just so cringy. It's just, I mean, like I just love like watching people in this restaurant that is like super, supposed to be super high end and super intense, and everyone's just like standing around doing nothing. You're just like, that's not like no one's serving food or making food. Everyone's just like standing around talking in this kitchen that's supposed to be super busy. It's like this is just wildly stupid.
What
And
about
then
when it comes to clothing?
when it comes to clothing, I mean, there have been a couple of movies that focus specifically on like making high end clothing. There's this one with like, I forget his name. I'll send you it afterwards. But like, what they typically get wrong is they over romanticize this whole like super ephemeral process of making an illustration and designing something from scratch, and like it's that sort of like exaltation of the process of making clothes. I'm like, no one's like,
Yeah.
it's the
So
same thing. Like no one's
so
just like
this would be like
looking at
movies like Phantom Thread where it's like,
exactly. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly
just
the one where
super gaudy, over the top. He's an
the
artiste waiting for his muse to,
exactly like Ralph
incept him.
Fiennes. Is that who is in it?
I think so. It's Daniel Day Lewis.
Daniel Day Lewis. No, that's exactly the film I was thinking of. Yeah, it's just like overly dramatic. You're just like, okay, in a vacuum, yes, there exist people who have the studio and they're making one of one, and they have this huge artist temperament, and not all
Hmm.
that's a farce. Like um, Actually, you know, one enterprise that showed it very well, very very well, was the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Um,
Oh, with the father-in-law, right?
yeah, that
Yeah.
father-in-law is super schmata. That's like schmata base right there, right? Like,
He's super smart.
so that okay, that whole set dressing is significant because okay, they shot all of those scenes of the father-in-law's business at this historic factory in Brooklyn called Martin Greenfield. Martin Greenfield is like one of the last factories in the United States that makes proper suiting. And like they're the ones that make suiting for the president. So like every incoming president gets a Martin Greenfield suit. It's like a tradition, right? And they've been
Damn.
around like I mean Greenfield himself, I mean now it's intergenerational, but Greenfield himself, like he was like a he has this wildly fantastic story. Like he escaped concentration camps in World War II, came to America, built this business. He's super distinct person. And yeah, the factory still stands and still running in Bushwick, and they shot all that stuff in that
That's
factory.
fucking cool.
And it's such a cool place. So yeah, if you go back and you watch those scenes, like all that's super. I mean, look, like it's television, right? So it's acted, it's scripted, but all of like the set dressing is like super spot on. It's so cool.
So, kind of on a similar trend, what would you say is the biggest misconception about suit creation by the wider world?
Oh, I mean, this applies to clothing in general. I have a big problem with how people value or place like a dollar value on clothing. You always get this idea that like, okay, someone who doesn't make clothing uh, will pick up a garment and say, "This is overpriced." It could be $10, it could be $50. But
Yeah,
the first thing comes out their mouth, "This is overpriced," because you know it's very easy judgment to make about something if you don't know
because
anything
they
about
don't
it.
want to pay that much.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's uncomfortable for them; they would not pay this much money for that. And you know, nowadays you can buy a suit for less than $100. You can buy a suit for over $10,000, and there's a lot in between. And I think that hopefully I haven't gone off on a tangent. Hopefully I'm answering a question. But the misconception that I'm really like I would love to debunk is just like what the value of a suit or a handmade item is, right?
Okay.
Um, and so you know the difference between $100 suit and a $10,000 suit. I mean, it's still cloth, right? You're still putting stitches in it. A lot of people like to qualify things by saying like, "Oh, this has more stitches than the other thing." That's all nonsense. Um, you know, the $100 suit is just made by machines. It's mechanized, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a like. I'm not like dissing that. Like there's a definite need for that.
Hmm.
It's a solution. It's a really good solution, right? It's an affordable garment that people need to wear on a daily basis to go to work, yada yada, yada, right? But it is, yeah, it doesn't do anything for you. Yeah, it's not meant to last for a very long time. It's not engineered to be sturdy and you know repairable. Um, $10,000 suits. That's also stupid. I mean, like that's just like people buying it for the name. But they're
Yeah.
like, but like you know, a traditional like Savile Row suit, like a bespoke suit, falls somewhere in between like you know, nowadays it's like $5,000 to $8,000. And you know, if you ask me, like that's also like I've never spent $5,000 on anything, right? Yeah, outside of a car or whatever. But if you ask me, like that's a very fair price. And I don't charge that much for my suits, but I would think that the work that I do is worth that much for sure. And it's just the equivalent of the amount of hours that goes into it. You know, I think like it takes like somewhere between like 40 and 60, you know, consecutive hours to make a suit, um, which is like, you know, quite a long time. I think like a mass manufacturer suit only takes, you know, like 2 or 3 hours, something like that, you know,
Yeah.
and
So between supplies and expertise, you're spending $100 an hour roughly on a suit, which you're paying for the best in the world at that price, right? It's or not the best in the world necessarily, but very close to it.
Yeah, and that includes the fabric. The fabric's the biggest cost of the suit, right? And like, that's the biggest differentiator between like $100 suit and a 5,000 or $10,000 suit is the fabric itself. You have materials that are like super, super, super beautiful, like cashmeres, things that just feel like a cloud, right? Like that's all nice. Like that's at the much higher end of things, and if you can afford that, that's great. Do people need to wear cashmere all the time? Not really. It's not a necessity. You can get by. But I would say that like, a high quality wool fabric is like leaps and bounds more durable and more, just has so many more beautiful properties in wearing it, and like, and also like how it wears over time, and how soon it develops creases or holes and all this stuff. Like, yeah, there's a huge difference in what you get.
So on the flip side of this, what would you say is your favorite non-obvious non blah, blah. So on the flip side of this, what would you say is your favorite non-obvious aspect that most people don't know about when it comes to the process that is suit making and all that, kind of surrounds that? What do people not know that it just makes your eyes light up or you think people should know?
I think that, well, I guess this is a better answer for the other question you asked, but it kind of fits. People think that suits are rigid and confining and um,
Mm,
uncomfortable, and people need to know that a classically tailored suit, a bespoke suit that's made for you, should feel like you're wearing nothing at all. Which like speaks to like how my clients who aren't are like you know big and small and wide and tall and all that stuff, how they feel when they wear a suit that's made for them is just like it just disappears. So I think the culture around wearing suits to work, people are typically wearing like the more economical, off the rack, like kind of cheapo suits, and yeah, those are very uncomfortable and those are very restrictive. um but like an old school tailored suit like that's made for you, you literally, you're like wearing nothing whatsoever. It's an amazing feeling.
hell yeah. All right, well, to move on from this lush and luxurious lily pad we find ourselves on to something far more lackluster. Kevin, my friend, what is your preposterous peeve?
I can't stand adults who have sloppy handwriting. It just irks me so much. It just like disgusting.
Not a fan of the doctors, are we?
No, actually, no. Okay, Doctor Script is one thing. I think that's pretty unique and fun. I'm just talking about people who like have like childish handwriting. Like, so my it's so funny. My boss at Band of Outsiders, um, this guy named Jack, he would always like, write notes on stuff and pass them to me, and I would look at them and I would wince because like not only not only was everything just like super sloppy and like crooked, he would write crookedly, right? So like things would like kind of slope down. I'm just like, you were like, you literally, okay. What it is for me that makes me so disgusted by it is like it's such a it just, you just don't care, right? Like there's no intention. Like there's just like you just
Yeah.
like you completely just ugh. When like
You completely just. Ugh.
you're just like so whatever about writing to people, and like I'm really huge on communication and like how you reach people. And it's not always verbal. It's like it's
Yeah.
gesture, and I see it as a wasted gesture, right? Yeah.
When did you first notice this being a issue for you? Where was this kind of had graduated high school, you're going on to, I don't want to call it, not to majoritize it, but like the adult world.
It's actually mostly on myself. Like in high school, when I saw myself writing sloppily, I was like, "Oh, that's gross. I could do better than that." And it's just like instilling, I guess, like the diligence to like write more neatly and more consistently. I don't. You know what it was is like I see my dad's hand. I love my dad's handwriting. He was an all caps handwriting kind of guy. Um, and so basically I just mirrored my handwriting style after him, and so like through practice of that, I just developed that habit of just like writing more neatly, writing more concisely, and like more sharply. And I guess like from me putting effort into doing that and seeing people not put effort into their handwriting,
Okay, yeah.
I'm just like, you guys aren't trying hard enough.
Are you even trying? Do you have a moment that over the years you've encountered that just really you blew your top? You made a mountain out of a molehill.
Oh, I mean, so many to choose from. Um,
What's your favorite? Pick from your Mount Rushmore.
okay, I'll try to make this short. I'll try to make this concise. Um, okay, so when I was working restaurants, it was part of the first restaurant that I worked for that was part of the opening team. Okay, so we were
Mm-hmm.
opening a restaurant.
Yep.
And I was way too young to be in the position that I was. I was just really, really like it was just if I had been 2 or 3 years older, it would have been a completely different situation. But when you're in a kitchen and you know the trope of like the shouty chefs,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very easy to look at it from the outside and be like, well, that's just ridiculous. They're just overreacting. That's just stupid. They don't have to do that stuff. And it's
Yeah.
true. You don't. But when you are not only like the skinniest, wimpiest, and youngest person in the kitchen full of like old, grumpy like cooks who really don't give a like hoot about what you're telling them to do, or yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing that you have as a tool to try to whip everybody into shape is the volume of your voice. Like, just that's what works. And nowadays there's a lot more tools. Nowadays it's a lot different. But like at that moment in time when I was working for a restaurant that was opening, all I had was just shouty, shouty, shouty. And on opening day, oh, this is so painful to relive. On opening day, we were, we were opening the restaurant, right? The front of house server people were being, toiling around and cleaning the front and like setting the tables and all that stuff. And in the back kitchen, we were all doing our chefy things and food things and getting ready. Everyone was doing their part, right?
Yeah.
And it was a ton of stress, ton of anxiety. First time I ever done that. I was the youngest person in the kitchen. Also, I was supposed to be in charge of everybody. It was really intimidating. I and I was like doing my rounds and just like doing my inspection of the restaurant, make sure everything was tip top. And like out of the corner of my eye, I like spied this water bottle that was like on the floor next to like one of the chairs on the tables. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
clearly like one of the people who was drinking a water bottle put it down and then walked away, right?
Yeah.
But like this was like 10 minutes before opening the restaurant for the first time. It was 10 minutes before showtime, and I like went ballistic. Like I lost my voice. Like I mean, it was people from across the street could hear me, and I just went like balls out. And like the reason why I did that was because I would just up to that point, up to that the entire week leading up to that, like that's all I was just like this shouty, like angry
Yeah.
person, like nothing was right, everything was late, blah blah this stuff. And so like this little water bottle that had been like forgotten, like someone had forgotten it, left there, just like set me off, and I just went ape shit. And I was a sous chef, and so my my chef, the executive chef of the restaurant, the person whose name was on the door, after my explosion, he just like looked at me, and it was just like a combination of like shock and disgust. It was just another level. But then I left the restaurant industry very soon after that. That was the beginning of the end for me, basically.
Well,
Oh,
to close it. Sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
the worst part about that story was in my shouty tirade. I also yelled at the chef's wife. Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, and so yeah. When he looked at me, it was shock, disgust, and he was also pissed. So I crossed the line.
No friends, only enemies were made
Yeah.
that day. All right, well, to change it from maddening to melodic, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have the listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
It's got to be Seabird by the Alessi brothers. It is just the most like you just cannot listen to it and not just feel bliss and joy and happiness like a child. Like it's just so soothing and fun and quirky. And it's a song about seabirds. So I mean, yeah.
All right, and with that, we're gonna throw it to our sponsors, so Kevin can have a minute to put on this here rubber suit before we get all up in the lightning round. But if advertisements aren't your thing, why not take a moment and have a listen to Seabird by Alessi Brothers? Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know.
Don't worry, there's a link in the description.
Either way, see y'all in a bit. Do you need 100 pounds of butter? Come on down to Company Street Company.
What if I need 30 gallons of olive oil?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
But what if I just want one flatless bird roasted for a reasonable price?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
Okay, but...
Just come on down to Company Street Company. We have everything for a better price, free snacks, and employees who don't want to kill themselves, or you, because we treat them like fucking human beings. Yeah, but... Yup.
Even...
Just get your ass down to Company Street Company, where the only sketchy thing we've ever done is enable frozen orange juice hoarders. And we're back. Kevin, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round?
I am.
All right, put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Kevin, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Make the food. Go ahead.
$5 million. Give up all the passions.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Do the dishes.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
If I'm having the best day of my life, then I take a nap. That's basically an amazing thing.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
It's cool because I love anybody who's obsessed with anything. So they just seem like a bunch of nerds, and I love that.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
I create my own thoughts, definitely.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Playlist.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
I think all art is a sham. So, no, there's not a perfect piece of art.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
I think the attractive female cartoons were like after, like I watched like Duckwing Tales and that stuff. So no.
Are you out of touch or is it the children who are wrong?
The children are wrong. I'm on point.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Kangaroo legs.
Are hot dogs tacos?
They're not tacos.
Would you rather
pizzas.
meet an... They're pizzas. Would you rather
Everything's a pizza.
Would you rather meet an alien or a ghost?
Alien.
Skydiving or deep sea diving?
Oh, neither. Both are horrible.
Do you read in the bathroom?
I don't
Be
read.
honest.
I don't read anything.
I don't read anywhere.
I watch YouTube videos. That's it.
Is karma real?
Yes, it is.
Do people who prefer Pepsi to Coke deserve rights?
No, that's just. I mean, that's unforgivable.
Do you pee in the shower?
Yeah, all the time. I wait to the shower to.
Would you rather have your first kiss have been next to a dumpster or in the middle of a pig pen?
Dumpster.
Do people have the inherent duty to help others?
They do. They really do.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
Yes. I don't even know what my favorite food is, but sure, I could probably do it.
Congratulations, you survived the lightning round! Woo! Now, before we move on, I, like many listeners at home, would like to now know, what is your favorite food that you could eat 37 of in a 1 hour time limit for $5,000?
I think I would say a street taco. I think that's like,
All right,
it's
I
super
can see
easy.
it. It's
Yeah,
feasible.
it's super easy.
I don't know, it's super easy.
I can knock it back pretty easily. Double fisting it.
All right, so this month on Patreon, we're going to try to raise $5,000 to see if Kevin Van can eat 37 tacos in an hour. But until then, my galvant guest, I grant thee a lightning round question of your own to be echoed until we get bored of it. What you got for us?
Death row meal. Would you rather have a steak and baked potato, or would you rather have a McDonald's cheeseburger and French fries?
I mean, you had me at McDonald's fries. Like, that's... I like, steak and baked potato is technically a better meal, but McDonald's fries are like fucking crack. Like, that shit's wildly... I don't know if I could pass up addiction when I know this is gonna be my last opportunity.
Oh, it's designed to make you feel
also,
like
like if they don't do the steak right, how shit is death gonna be? Being like, I asked for fucking medium and it's fucking rare, or it's like well done. Like, you're just like fucking seething.
I love the people who like sit in first class airplanes and get their steak served to them. It's like, you just got a microwave steak, dude.
Yeah, there is no fucking oven or fucking stovetop up there, homie. All right, man. As we come to a close here, anything you want to plug, shout-outs you'd like to give, places people can find you or your content?
I kind of have an Instagram, which you can kind of find me. I'm again not one to self-aggrandize, but if there's anybody out there who's interested in a handmade suit, they can definitely reach out.
Holla at your boy. All right, past me. Well, thank you, Kevin, for being my guest today, and a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you listening at home, wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons. Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.